The TK button opens a menu of advanced actions. Each of these actions completes a long series of Photoshop steps, so using the actions instead of applying these techniques by hand can save you a lot of time. And if you're a newer Photoshop user, they allow you to easily apply advanced Photoshop techniques that you might not otherwise know how to do. The TK menu is divided into 3 sections: Actions, Color, and Blend. In this chapter, we'll look at the Actions section. The Vignette action creates an oval vignette sized for the image, which darkens the image edges. When you run the action, it stops to allow you to adjust the amount of blur on your vignette. The panel automatically suggests a blur radius based on the resolution of your image, but you can also pick a different amount of blur to suit your tastes as you choose. You can further adjust your vignette by working with the opacity of the vignette layer. And you can either paint with either black on the mask to remove the vignette from certain areas, or you can paint with white to bring in more vignette into other areas. The freehand vignette is new to the TK7 panel. To use this action, you want to start with the lasso tool and then draw where you want your custom vignette to be. And once you have that selection made, now you run the action. From here on, it works like the regular vignette action. It stops to allow you to adjust the blur of the vignette, and it suggests a blur that it thinks is right for the image size. And here you can also adjust the opacity to increase or decrease the effect. And you can paint on the mask with black or white to further customize it. And if you decided you got the blur wrong and you want to add more blur, you can always select the mask and then click on the blur button and increase the blur. The spotlight action is also new to the TK7 panel. It allows you to lighten parts of the image to guide the eye and create dimension. In short, it works just the opposite of the freehand vignette action. Use the lasso to draw selections around areas that you want to spotlight in your image. And then with those selections active, you run the spotlight action. And you can, again, adjust the amount of blur if you want, but it suggests a blur. And now you can further work with the opacity to increase or decrease the effect. And sometimes I'll find that I'll increase the effect and then open up the curves adjustment window and then work with the contrast in the spotlight as well. I'll often select both the spotlight and freehand vignette layers and place them together in a group that I call dimension or something like that, so that I can turn them both on and off and control the opacity of the group all in one place. And you can see what a great effect that has on focusing your view into the parts of the image where you want and creating a really deep effect in the image. Dehaze is another new action in the TK7 panel. It creates an effect similar to the dehaze slider in Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. Clarity and contrast are added to a wide range of midtone values so that it effectively removes the sense of atmospheric haze, and it also can give a nice punch in many other situations. I like it because it tends to retain the image colors better than other dehaze or clarity methods that I've tried. The action creates a dehaze group on the Layers panel. For most images, I find that the default settings will do the trick just as they are. But if you want to get advanced, there are several ways that this effect can also be customized. The first way to try is to go to the dehaze layer that's inside the group and adjust the amount of fill. It's default set to 35%, so you can try less fill or more fill to increase or decrease the effect. You can also work with the controls in the Adjust Dehaze layer that's clipped to the dehaze layer. When you open it, it's a brightness contrast adjustment, and you can work with the brightness to decide the brightness amount that you want for that. And you can try working with the contrast, and depending on the image, it may or may not provide an adjustment that you like. The layer mask in the dehaze group can also be painted on with a black brush if you want to mask out the effect in parts of the image. Finally, the layer mask that comes on the dehaze layer can also be replaced with other masks. I know we haven't started working with the rapid mask module yet, but to try different masks on the dehaze layer, make sure that the dehaze layer is active, and then in the rapid mask module, check the layer mask mode checkbox. Now you can simply click different mask buttons in the rapid mask module, and that will automatically swap out this mask with the new one. So you can try a variety of different lights masks to see how they look. You can try darks masks to see how they look. You can try mid-tone masks. If you find one that you like, you can exit layer mask mode and just leave the action as it is. However, if you don't find another mask that you like better and you'd like the original mask that came with the action back, there's no easy way to recreate that exact mask. So what you need to do is either go to the history and go back in the history to where you ran the dehaze action and go to there. That'll get you back the original mask. Or you can simply just delete the whole dehaze group and then just run the dehaze action again. The clarity action uses Photoshop's high-pass filter to increase edge contrast in the image. The default radius is 10 pixels, but you can select a radius value that you want. If you want to affect lighter tones in the image or enhance fine detail, choose a lower radius value somewhere in the 5 to 15 pixel range. If the effect is going to be constrained to darker tones or larger contours, then set the radius to a larger value like 30 to 60 or maybe even more. Sometimes I'll use clarity as a global adjustment across the entire image, but other times I want to target it to specific tones using a luminosity mask. Again, just like we did with the dehaze action, you would go to the rapid mask module and enter layer mask mode, and then experiment with different masks. If you use a mid-tone mask, that's a great way to enhance mid-tone clarity. Adding a darks mask will bring out details in the shadows. And I know that's probably difficult to see in the video. And using a lights mask is a great way to bring out clarity in clouds and water highlights and other bright parts of the image. The clarity via smart object does the same thing as the clarity action, except when you run it, the high-pass filter is applied on a smart object layer. This makes it possible to go back later and fine-tune the clarity by double-clicking high-pass under smart filters. The disadvantages of smart objects is that they take longer to run and they also take up more space in the image file. So I've used this one to add some mid-tone clarity by putting a mid-tone number 2 mask on the clarity layer. But if I decide I want to now adjust how much clarity is there, now that I can see it with the mask, the advantage is I can double click the high pass smart filter and reopen the high pass filter control and change the radius and get the look that I want. And I can actually now see what the effect of that radius looks like with the mask having its effect. The plus minus dust action helps find sensor dust in smooth areas of the image. When you run the action the first time, it zooms in on the image is changed to black and white, and the contrast is boosted. The spot healing brush is activated and a heal clone layer is left active. You just need to make sure that the sample all layers checkbox for the spot healing brush is checked. Now all you need to do is hold down the space bar so that you can drag around the image and look for dust spots. And when you see them, size your brush and click on the dust spot to remove it. If you would prefer to use the clone stamp tool instead of the spot healing brush tool, you can select that. And you just need to make sure that it's set to sample the current layer and below. You can also work with the adjustments in the amplified dust layer by double clicking on it to open up the properties. And as you increase the contrast in that layer, you'll find often other dust spots that you didn't previously see start appearing. So you need to go back to the heal clone layer, and now you can continue removing those. Once all the dust has been removed, you can click the plus minus dust action again, and this will remove the temporary layers and zoom the image back out with hopefully all the dust gone. The RGB LAB action allows you to make adjustments to your image in the LAB color mode. It's possible to make certain contrast and color adjustments in the LAB mode that you can't make in the RGB color mode. However, once you move into the LAB color mode, you now lose access to all your RGB color adjustments. If you already use the LAB color mode, then you'll find this action really useful. If you don't know about the LAB color mode, you can learn more by doing a search on the internet or on YouTube. Here's a quick demonstration of how it works. When you first run the action, it creates a new merged smart object layer of the image. And then it opens that smart object as its own document in the LAB color mode so you can make LAB adjustments to it. One common way to adjust LAB colors is with a curves adjustment layer. When you go into curves, instead of having the RGB color channels, you have a lightness, A, and B channel, and that's why it's called the LAB mode. And one common way to boost colors is to go to the A channel and bring in the edges of the curve ways, and as long as you keep these symmetrical, you'll maintain your color balance, or if you don't keep them symmetrical, you can adjust the white balance or color balance that way. And then you go to the B channel and do the same thing, and the further you bring these in, the more severe the adjustment will be, and you can find the right balance for the colors that you want in the image that way. So you can see there's that color change that's happened in that LAB adjustment. However, those are here in this LAB version of the image, which doesn't allow me to make my regular RGB image adjustments that I'm used to. So once I get that LAB adjustment where I want, what I do is go back to that action and run it a second time. And this will save this LAB version of the image. And then it will update those LAB adjustments into the smart object layer back in your RGB document. So effectively what you get is LAB adjustments showing up in an RGB document. And then you can continue to make RGB adjustments beyond that layer. And in the future, if you ever want to readjust those LAB adjustments, you can just double click on the smart object to reopen it back in LAB mode. And there you have access to any LAB adjustments you made. You can adjust them and then just run the RGB to LAB action again, and those LAB adjustments will be saved in that LAB document and updated to the smart object back in the original image file. Frequency separation is most often associated with portrait photography to even out skin tone and texture, but it can also produce some useful and artistic effects with landscape and other types of photography. Frequency separation effectively separates color and texture so they can be managed independently. In the upcoming frequency separation chapter, I'll give you a complete lesson on how to use frequency separation. And the final actions in the action section are the lights triple play and darks triple play actions. The triple play is a technique that Tony Kuiper developed years ago that uses luminosity masks on adjustment layers to simultaneously affect the brightness, contrast, and detail in an image, and that's why it's called the triple play. In the upcoming triple play chapter, I'll give you a complete lesson on how to use the triple play actions.